Hello, my name is Shivani Ramjee. I'm an actuary and an academic at the University of Cape Town. I'm going to be talking about comparing the costs of hospital care in the public and private sectors in South Africa. The rhetoric about hospitals in South Africa is familiar. Private hospitals are typically characterized as being overcapitalized and wasteful, while hospitals in the public sector are often characterized as being under-resourced and overutilized. It seems obvious with these broad characterizations that the costs of delivering hospital care in the private sector are higher than the costs in the public sector, doesn't it? But what if our perceptions about the cost differentials are wrong? Comparing costs across the two sectors is actually really tricky. There are structural differences between the two sectors. The patients that they treat are different, but most importantly, there are fundamental differences in the nature of the hospitals. So their stakeholder relationships and the way that these relationships impact on their objectives and their incentives. My task was to compare the cost of delivering hospital care, but using only publicly available data and attempting to do it on a like-for-like basis. So what this meant was actually adjusting explicitly for the structural differences that exist between the two sectors. The first most obvious difference is tax. Only the private sector pays tax, and the financial impact of VAT and corporate tax is actually quite substantial. The second difference relates to staffing arrangements. So public hospitals are permitted to employ doctors, while private hospitals are prohibited from doing so. So this means that their labor costs are actually very different. The third difference relates to the costs of capital. Private hospitals have to acquire capital on the open market, and the hospitals are capital intensive by nature. What this means is that they have costs associated with both debt and equity. The last difference between the last major structural difference between the two sectors relates to preferential purchasing. The public sector in South Africa has a price efficiency advantage over the public sector because they're able to obtain pharmaceuticals at a discount by using preferential purchasing. So what happens once we take all of these structural differences or structural artifacts into account? Well, the results are quite surprising. The cost differentials start to disappear. This has lots of interesting implications and raises a series of questions. The first important implication relates to the importance of evidence-based policy making and the importance of evidence-based policy making. We should not be making major policy decisions on the basis of these broad characterizations and polarized perceptions. We need to be collecting data on the quality of care that's provided and the patients that are treated, and both the public and private sectors need to be placing this data in the public domain so that we can do these comparisons properly. The second issue relates to the structural artifacts themselves and raises questions about whether they're necessary and whether they actually impact negatively on affordability and access to quality healthcare in South Africa. And whether we should be thinking about whether we can more optimally make use of both our public and private sectors to deliver care for the country as a whole. Thank you.